All right. Tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce our tonight's speakers. We're happy to have Arturo with us from Casa Puebla. It's a community center in Adjuntas, Puerto Rico, and we've interacted with them over the past several years, including a visit from our energy studies minor in a seminar course last fall. Tonight's presentations is co-sponsored by the PR SAND, which is the Puerto Rican Student Association of Notre Dame. Their president, Alvaro Carrillo, is a junior in accounting and political science, and he will be the moderator for tonight and introduce our guest. Alvaro, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect, thank you. You're appreciated a lot. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to all of you for being here, taking out of your time to participate in this event. And I'd like to say thank you also to Dory and Arturo for taking out their time and being here. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Dory. Dory, she's the executive director of the Hano Foundation. She's has almost around 10 years of experience working in the not-for-profit sector. She's formed part of the Peace Corps, working as a national program coordinator in the Dominican Republic. She's also helped migrants in rural Appalachia, and she's been working with the Hana Foundation for 3 years now. Now, definitely, Dory has a lot of experience when it comes to the not-for-profit sector. And now with Arturo Masol, he's the executive director of Casa Pueblo. Casa Pueblo is a not-for-profit organization in Puerto Rico and based in Adjuntas, Puerto Rico. Being born and raised in Puerto Rico, I've heard a lot about Casa Pueblo and their efforts to help in multiple areas of Puerto Rico. The first thing that comes to my mind always is their efforts in Peñuelas with the ash crisis there was there. They're a big figure in that. And apart from that, they're recognized nationally, internationally, with an example is the nation's Goldman Environmental Prize in 2002. And Arturo is also a professor in one of the most famous schools in Puerto Rico, Universidad de Puerto Rico, el Colegio Mayagüez. We, the locals, just call it Maya, but he's a biology and ecology professor there. So we definitely have two very prepared panelists to contribute a lot to this discussion. And now I would like to, if Ginger can put a video, we're going to put a short video to you guys so you can see what's actually happening in Adjuntas, what's the partnership between Casa Pueblo and the Hana Foundation.
Cuando uno mira todas estas montañas, ve todos los ríos, eso le da a uno esperanza y le da deseos de vivir para poder defenderla.
Nosotros nos dimos cuenta que estaba el porvenir de Puerto Rico entredicho. Y decidimos entonces luchar no solamente por las aguas, la ecología, el ambiente, sino también por la sobrevivencia de Puerto Rico como una nación.
There is a need to move away from fossil fuels, to reduce our ecological footprint, to do our part to confront global warming. We grew up here, we have been doing this for 39 years, and we're committed to continue walking that path.
I think that this project in Casa Pueblo is maybe the most complex project that we've taken on through the Hana Foundation. Though it doesn't feel that big in some ways, just because our local partners, Arturo and Casa Pueblo, are so dialed and already have so many of the parts together.
What we're doing is a transformation, a transition from fossil fuels to clean energy sources that will be owned by the community. We're going to help the town to be energy self-sufficient.
It's kind of magical to find a place where everybody in the town already knows that solar is a good idea. Like, you don't need to sell it to anybody. They're psyched. They know how it works. They know how powerful it can be when it comes to disaster resilience and climate resilience. And they also know how powerful it can be economically because it's so much cheaper.
One of the big issues with renewable energy in general is energy storage. That's really where Rivian comes in, because Rivian manufactures electric vehicles, but really at the heart of that is energy storage, which is batteries. They're no longer great for a vehicle, but they can still provide backup for a community.
We've always known that this battery in the vehicle was always only the beginning. Today was an opportunity to see, did we hit the mark, right? Can we leverage our technology in our second application, third application, which is grid storage for communities?
In a perfect world, what we're going to end up with is the island's first cooperative solar microgrid. Something that is totally based on the community's needs and interests to really build something that's going to set an example for the rest of the island.
We're gonna take the streets of Adjuntas, not to oppose to the mining, not to oppose to a natural gas pipeline. This is La Marcha del Sí, the march of a yes. In the case of Puerto Rico, there's a lot of injustice, and we have to confront that reality. This is for the people to get together and tell us collectively that we want a different future, and we're going to build that different future. The majority is claiming a change and a transformation now, not in 2050, that we want the transformation to clean energy sources now.
Man, that's a great video. Every time I see it, I just gives you goosebumps. It's a great video. So, starting off, this first question is more directed to Arturo, and as we've seen in the video, renewable energy is a very important alternative in Puerto Rico, because due to the nature of Puerto Rico, we're constantly being hit by hurricanes, now even earthquakes, and also by the location of Adjuntas. It's a very useful thing to have, renewable energy. My question is, what has been the role of the government and local companies helping you guys in this initiative of making this transition? Arturo, you're muted. You're muted, Arturo. Perfect.
I'm sorry. Well, from the government, not much, actually, because the power authority is owned by the government, is run with fossil fuels, natural gas, bunker, coal, and they want to keep it that way. They don't want people to produce their own energy. They want to keep people as a market, not see people being producers of their own energy. But when you think about the reality of Puerto Rico, not only dependent upon fossil fuels, where the vulnerability to natural events with climate change, we're being banged quite often, and the system is so obsolete that people are suffering from that. And also the economical crisis. So there's a necessity, not an opportunity, a necessity to move away from fossil fuels, to embrace local resources. Solar power is one. We have water, we have wind, we have biomass. We have enough local resources that can be used to produce the energy needs of the island. And this is what we're pushing, a bottom-up transformation, because it's not happening from the top to the bottom. So we call it, Álvaro, la insurrección energética. The energy insurrection is what is happening in Puerto Rico. People pushing for this transformation, and the government not necessarily opposing, but not facilitating the transformation.
Oh, I understand that. That's a very, very important aspect that you mentioned, is you have to think about the economic side, because Puerto Rico, maybe for a lot of the public, Puerto Rico right now is in an insane amount of debt. That, debt affects everything. Not only, you're not only paying to people obviously that you owe the debt, but that debt affects the overall development of the country, the overall development being energy, social welfare, and that's a very big impact it has on energy. And thank you for bringing that up, Arturo, because that's definitely a very important thing that a lot of people don't know, and it's very important to shed light upon.
Sure.
Definitely.
You have to realize that we're losing like $3,000 million a year just to pay for the fuels. So Puerto Rico is a market for these fossil fuels. We don't produce them. So it's very difficult to confront the economical crisis without using and getting the benefit of producing our own power from our own resources. That's colonialism, that's dependency, and it's not good for the island, and it's not good for the environment either.
Definitely, it's a very important topic by far. So, and now moving now to Dory, and I know the HANA Foundation is recognized not only in the United States, but not globally. They have multiple initiatives, not only in Puerto Rico, with the partnership with Casa Pueblo. And my question to you is, how did this partnership actually come to place? How did you guys actually get in contact with Casa Pueblo and engage in this extremely ambitious project that can reap a lot of benefits to the island? Give me a little overview about that.
For sure. So, I mean, briefly, the HANA Foundation, we support solar energy for a more equitable world. So all over the world, we fund projects that reduce environmental impact and improve people's lives, with a special focus on social equity and social justice. And we do all that by supporting solar energy access. At this point, I think it was almost 2 years ago, maybe, that Arturo and I first got connected. The HANA Foundation, although we've been around since 2012, experienced a lot of growth in the past couple of years, in part due to the fact that our founder, Alex Honnold, got extremely famous all of a sudden. And so as a result, we were able to start exploring taking on much more complex projects. And I was doing some research thinking about regions where there might be sort of exciting solar energy access work happening. And I found an article in The Intercept about Puerto Rico's recovery from the hurricane. And it talked a little bit about Casa Pueblo and the way that the center had functioned as an energy oasis. And there were some quotes from Arturo in the piece. And I was like, man, I should probably talk to this guy. And so I reached out. Arturo and I had a phone call that winter really briefly, and not long after that, myself and one of our partners from Rivian, the company that's helping to support the project, traveled to Puerto Rico to meet with Arturo and to get to know Casa Pueblo. And the partnership has really grown from there. It's a privilege to be able to support Casa Pueblo's work. It's really a visionary organization, and I think that Arturo's leadership and vision for a more sort of self-sufficient and resilient Puerto Rico is really, it's a model for all islands, and I think all communities everywhere.
Nice. No, I love the aspect you said, and it's very interesting how you said that once you started to get more capital and being due to the rise in publicity of Honnold, how you decided to tackle more complex projects, and that led you to Puerto Rico. And it's interesting, and this is a food for thought. So asking you is this, do you see the project in Casa Pueblo having all the tools to move forward, being obviously it's a very complex thing to make this complete transformation from fossil fuel dependency to energy. But do you believe tackling these problems that you have all the tools to actually be able to do this in Puerto Rico?
I think Casa Pueblo has all the tools. And I think that the people in Puerto Rico have all the tools, and what we're bringing is money. and visibility. The thing that I think is really important when we think about this partnership is like, this is like, Casa Pueblo doesn't need the Honnold Foundation, and that's the kind of funder relationship that we want to have. This is really about helping the community of Adjuntas realize their vision for resiliency, for self-sufficiency, and we're there to support in whatever ways we can.
Do you have something to say about that, Arturo?
No. I want to. Dori is very humble. What the Honnold Foundation brings to Adjuntas is much more than money and engineering and resources. Of course, it's very important. But Casa Pueblo is about building community, and everything we are doing it's not just to set up solar panels on the top of rooftops of businesses and homes. What we're doing is we are engaged in a social transformation process. That's what we're doing, and energy is basic in order to achieve that social transformation that we need in Puerto Rico. Of great inequalities and political disadvantages and a lot of issues that you're very familiar with our island. And what the Honnold Foundation brings to Adjuntas, it's huge. For me, it's huge. It's the most complex project we have done, and it has been the easiest. It had been the easiest because there's someone named Cynthia Arellano, who is a project manager from the Honnold Foundation. And you have the engineers and you have the people from energy storage working at California. And then you have to work with the local business because it's a very ambitious project. It's not about energizing any location. It's about energizing downtown Adjuntas, where the highest energy demand is. Where people are used to, I mean, these are business people, capitalist driven people, and this is going to be a social network of energy generation, and they're going to be paying for the energy at a reduced cost. So it's going to have an impact in reducing operational cost, economic activation, but at the same time, those businesses, they better pay their bill because we're going to use that money to help low-income families reach energy security as well. So it's a very complicated scenario. The engineering component, the resources, and the partnership with the Honnold Foundation have been, in my heart, huge. And I'm very happy that we talk at some point, Dori. I didn't know Alex Honnold at that time, but now I do, and we're very happy to see this moving forward. That video is from last year, and if you come to Adjuntas now, there's a huge difference. Even though we're facing earthquakes, even though we're facing the pandemic with COVID for 6 months, it has been a real challenge. And again, I think the people from the Honnold Foundation, it's simply amazing. And they have the global view, which makes everything simpler for us to really engage into a friendship relationship.
That's awesome. So I love what you said, Arturo, of the importance that renewable energy helps a lot to reduce operational costs, and that helps the whole community overall, being local businesses or being your own paycheck. You're paying your own bill of electricity for your house, so it affects everything. And this is, I remember I was recently reading some facts about the energy costs in Puerto Rico, and this is for the students here. Comparing what you pay in Puerto Rico for what you pay in Florida, you pay in Puerto Rico almost 3 times the cost of electricity that you pay in Florida. So that's just like a quick fact, so you can visualize how big the disparity and how expensive is the power in Puerto Rico for consumers, not only businesses but consumers. And you have people who are living in the poverty level. So energy affects, being able to reduce those costs affects everything, and it's extremely, it's very gratifying. And now moving to you were talking, Dori, about Rivian, about your partner, and Arturo mentioned that too, of how important they are in this partnership. My question is, what's the role of the foundation in bringing other partners like Rivian, but maybe other partners that can even offer more tools to take this project to be at a larger scale or be more successful?
Yeah, totally. So, and I also kind of calling back to what Arturo was saying earlier, Cynthia Rayano, our project manager on this initiative, has been a total game changer. And this is actually the Honda Foundation is a staff of 4. We're a really small organization. The project with Casa Pueblo is the only one that has a dedicated project manager. But I mean, I think her role, getting to know the community and spending a lot of time in Adjuntas and touching all the different pieces of this really complex project has been essential to puzzling all this together. But to your question, in terms of partnerships, one of the things that the Honda Foundation does really effectively is broker these partnerships on behalf of nonprofits like Casa Pueblo, so that, you know, Arturo and the rest of the team at Casa Pueblo, they don't have to think about the partnership. They don't have to, you know, navigate donor relationships. They don't have to get on the conference calls. Although we did get to go visit Rivian's battery facility together, which was pretty cool.
That was cool. Oh, yeah.
But what we do is we build those relationships as the foundation and then take on all of the risk, the liability, the details, and then pass through the benefit to our partners. So for this project in Adjuntas, Rivian has been an incredible partner. They're donating the energy storage solutions. So like they talked about in the video, we're basically taking second life batteries out of electric vehicles, rehousing them, making some changes to the design, and then those will be plopped down in the middle of Adjuntas. Right now it's looking like we'll have enough storage that we should be able to back up the entire Plaza Central, like all of the businesses facing the center of town, for up to 3 days. Which when you think about what it might look like, not if, but when there is another serious storm, because I think because of climate change, it's more an inevitability than anything else, unfortunately. The community will be so much more resilient as a result. And the Business Association in Adjuntas has created a separate 501c3 entity called Accesa, which, like Arturo was saying, is responsible for managing the microgrid, managing payment, making sure that they're actually charging people so that we can go back and do that social good work that Casa Pueblo is going to help facilitate. And so they're also talking about disaster resilience. How can this group, Accesa, become a resource for planning for the worst case scenario, for making sure that people have refrigerators to put their insulin in, for providing public charging stations for cell phones. And obviously Casa Pueblo is already doing incredible work around resilience. The radio station is a great example of ways in which they're providing these essential services. But hopefully Accesa and the microgrid will kind of add another layer to that. The other key partners on this project, REC Group are a solar panel manufacturer. REC supported a project that the Honda Foundation funded in Detroit with a group there that we call the Casa Pueblo of Detroit. It's the North End Woodward Community Coalition. It's led by a woman named Reverend Joan Ross, and they do a really similar, like, sort of full spectrum, super grassroots, meeting those local needs, strong justice focus, really thinking about resiliency by Detroiters for Detroiters. REC Group supported that project. They've also donated a ton of solar panels for this project, shipped them straight from Singapore, which was, our team got to learn how to handle import taxes, which was fun. And there's also been some support from a nonprofit called Empowered by Light, who's also donated some panels, because it's a big project. It takes a lot of solar panels.
No, I imagine those import taxes were pretty heavy. Puerto Rico is known for that, so.
Yeah, it was a fun adventure. We really, yeah, I mean, the deeper you get, I think, into things like import taxes in Puerto Rico, it's if you're social justice oriented, it's hard not to get fired up about it.
Definitely. And that brings forward to my next question. You both, Arturo, and you both mentioned the main idea of this project, which is designing a community-owned solar microgrid. And this is not easy. It's obviously seen it being that we don't see this all around the island. We see it in some places, but it's not still common to see it in everywhere, you know? So I imagine there's a lot of challenges that come with this. My question to both of you is, what are the main challenges you faced in trying to design, manage, and get it running, the community-owned solar microgrid?
Dori?
Go first.
No, you go. I don't see, well, I mean, there's a path. I think we have identified the path that we have to take, which is uphill in order to do this. We conceptualize a really broad project we added a lot of layers of complications. But I mean, the challenges is basically to fulfill the path that we have drawn, and we're moving forward, and you draw a lot of happiness from doing that. So there's some complications like the taxes, and perhaps the local government is not that happy. It's not the same as unplugging one house or two houses as becoming a reference of what can be done at every single municipality in Puerto Rico if people get organized and decides to change their energy reality and build something that is even better for themselves and better for the community. That's the real threat that I think we poses to the government. But it's kind of interesting, Dori. You don't know this, but I got everything we do in Casa Pueblo is independent from the government support. We don't take government support, not from the local government, no federal government. We're a community group, and we want to keep it that way. We do work with others like Dori and the Hono Foundation, but it's very selective. But this is something weird that happened to me last week. I got a phone call from one guy. I don't know if I can tell this, but I got a phone call from someone from FEMA, middle level, and he's trying to organize a group from the FEMA officials to go to Adjuntas because they want to learn what we are doing in Adjuntas, to see if they can sort of learn something that can be done in other places in Puerto Rico. So we are not even running the system yet, and we are having impact already in the difficult layer, which is to reach, that top level government officials. And it's just by working by example. It's not like we're calling them or anyone. We're doing what we're doing, and we tell people why we're doing this, and all of a sudden we're getting a very positive responses, and I guess those are collateral benefits that will speed up, hopefully, the energy transformation that we need in Puerto Rico.
That's awesome about FEMA. I think too, it sort of speaks to what I was going to say about what I think the biggest challenge is that this is a huge project. And I think at this point we're connecting 17 businesses to a grid in a way that hasn't been done before. We're using a new energy storage product. There's no real precedent for this from a PREPA perspective, from the perspective of the Energy Authority.
No.
And the business model of Accessa is also totally radical. It's wildly anti-capitalist, which is impressive considering that it's the business association. And so I think for me, the biggest challenge is just that it takes a long time, like Arturo said, we started working on this 2 years ago. And I think, in the nonprofit sector, people don't really like it when you're like, we're just going to do this for as long as it takes. And it's probably not going to be fast, and it's definitely not going to be easy, and it's going to be complicated because no one's done it before. And I think that's really the hardest thing about it. I give a ton of credit to everyone in Adjuntas, and especially to Accessa, the business association who are going to be managing it, for staying committed to the vision. Because I think there are a lot of places, a lot of communities where folks would be like, this is never going to happen. And I think it's a credit to Casa Pueblo and your guys' work as community organizers, as an organization that has such a deep investment in the community. It's someplace else, I think folks would be like, yo, this is never going to happen. But it's because it's Adjuntas and we're getting there and progress is being made. It's just slow. But there are solar panels on buildings, which frankly is a huge breakthrough. And we're looking at finishing up the solar install in September.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Because one thing that really blew my mind, Arturo, I was reading, and Casa Pueblo has been running, I imagine the main building has been running for 2 decades now in solar energy. So you've guys been ahead of the curve for a lot of time now, and that's extremely interesting. And going now with Dori, what you mentioned, I think is extremely essential, and it speaks about the culture of Puerto Rico, that when you say oh, if I go to other municipalities, probably if I tell them, look, we're gonna try to move to renewable energy, people are gonna say, nah, that's impossible. We're not even gonna invest our time to help you. And that's something that is very serious in Puerto Rico, and it's seen even in the politics and the bipartisan we have. In Puerto Rico, there, in the culture, there exists this idea of it's very hard to change, this reluctancy for change, and it applies to politics and it applies to energy. And my question is, do you believe this is a very serious issue that affects you guys expanding this project, maybe apart from Juntas, but to Puerto Rico overall? This mentality.
I'll start by saying this. I don't pretend to know Puerto Rico, straight up. Like, I have spent time there. I have like deeply valued my time there. I think it's a really fascinating and remarkable place, but like, I do not pretend to know. At the same time though, I think what you're saying is true for most people everywhere. The idea of this kind of radical change is like a hard thing to believe. And I mean, like we said, it's a hard thing to do too. It's like, people aren't wrong when they're like, that seems like a long shot. It's like, it kind of is. It takes a lot of work. Like, you've got to be invested in it. I don't know though. I mean, like Arturo was saying, that since this project started, we've been getting interest from people who want to do the same thing. And like, we haven't even figured out how to do it yet. You know, like, we were getting interest in scaling the project when it was still like a conversation that Arturo and I were having. So I don't know. I mean, I think that there is appetite for change. And I think in general, like, people want their lives and their communities to be better. And the other side of the coin of the amount of sort of just like unprecedented disaster that Puerto Rico has experienced recently, and the decades of sort of injustice that have predated all of that, it seems to me that a lot of the folks I've talked to there are interested in like trying a different way. I don't know, Arturo, what do you think?
I think we were a minority in 1999 when we started with solar power in Adjuntas. People saw us very weird for a long time. We upgraded the system throughout the years and it became better. We worked with the university and I think there's a lot of credibility behind, not only because of Casa Pueblo, but other stakeholders. And I think people, I mean, if you think about the way people see the government that is not fulfilling their responsibilities time after time, they're actually open to new possibilities, to engage with other people that have a different vision. And I don't feel like a minority anymore. I think people pretty much know what we need to do for Puerto Rico, regardless of our religious or political background or ideologies. I think it's very clear, and things are you know, the pieces are getting together, and what is happening in Adjuntas is a great example that needs to be completed, and I know it's going to happen, and it's going to be a huge positive reference, not only for Puerto Rico. I know Dori is interested in the Caribbean, and we need to also think about our brother islands of the Caribbean who are basically going through the same difficulties as Puerto Rico.
Definitely. It's something that goes, you know, we're talking about Puerto Rico, but by far this is something that long-term should be applied and started in many countries apart from Puerto Rico. And one thing, when I was seeing the video we saw at the beginning, Dory, you said in the video that one of the most amazing things that makes this project more accessible is that the people in Adjuntas are already mentalized. Everybody's like, yes, like this is the way to go. You don't have to convince me, you know, that's the way to go. And I imagine, and this is for both, maybe Arturo can answer this one, like, do you think this mentality it's born from your constant years of doing social work and building your reputation of working for the people? And do you think that's a big factor? How were you able to create this mindset that we can't see in a lot of places in Puerto Rico?
I guess it is a combination of factors, and after we were hit by Hurricane Maria, and they saw Casa Pueblo with power and people going in to get help and support. I mean, we live the tragedy and we live the, you know, the options and the opportunities to move forward to a different future. But I have to tell you one story. Is that, I mean, in Casa Pueblo have been running with solar power and it's okay. And after the hurricane, we help a lot of homes to be energy secure. But I think for the business people, Dori, it was when we decided to set up an energy system in the barber shop. So we said, you know, we have been helping people. What about setting up this infrastructure at the barber shop in town? And after that point, you know, our spokesperson is the barber. We don't need to say anything. He's the one who have convinced every single businessman guy in Aduntas, and people go there and they see him, how happy he is because he's producing his own energy. And regardless if there's a power outage, he's still working, and he doesn't realize that the whole town is without power. I mean, because he's energy secure, and he's happy because he's producing his own energy. So I guess you need a combination of trust, reputation, ideas, but ideas that are put into place. I mean, ideas that work for the people. And I think we have all of those ingredients happening at the same time in Adjunta. So we're very happy with that.
That's awesome. I love the barber is the key, because that's a big thing in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, like, the towns are designed in having very local businesses, and everybody knows each other. So if you're able to convince a barber that probably attends almost everybody in the community, he's gonna speak to everybody. That's a very peculiar way to see it, but it's awesome. You know, the impact a barber can have. It's pretty cool. I love it. So my last question to both of you. Later, I'm gonna open it to a Q&A. So if anybody any students are interested in, anybody's interested in making a question, feel free to type it in the chat, or you can send it privately to me, or raise your hand and you can speak in public. But that'll be after this last question. So Arturo and Dori, what does success look for both of you in this project? What is success being? It can be short term, it can be long term. What is your success for this project?
I can go first because I actually just had a conversation with Cynthia about this like yesterday. I mean, for the Honnold Foundation, from our perspective, success is to be able to construct this microgrid and to hand it to Accessa and to have them take it and never need us again. I think that, and that's what we're trying to build right now, right? It's not that we don't want to be in Adjuntas. We obviously love working in Adjuntas and deeply value our relationship with Casa Pueblo. But, you know, for this to work, Accessa has to be ready to manage it, and to manage it with a lot of clarity and decisiveness and leadership. And that group of people is like, they're the right people. The business owners are really committed to the work. They have all the skills to manage it because they manage their own businesses. And so, you know, our like banner is like, we want to build the best microgrid we possibly can, like as efficient as it can be, as high functioning as it can be, as resilient as it can be. And we want to hand it off to an organization that's been fully equipped and empowered to manage that as a resource for their community. I think too, and Arturo, I'm sure you'll talk about this too, is that a big part of success is being a reference for the rest of Puerto Rico, the rest of the Caribbean. I think Casa Pueblo has a long legacy of being a reference point for kind of envisioning a different world, envisioning a better world. And we're optimistic that the microgrid will be a part of that, and that other communities and community organizations will look to the microgrid and say, we want to do something similar, and that the Honnold Foundation will be able to support them in that process, and that they'll be able to, you know, refer to Casa Pueblo because they're out there blazing the trail.
Well, in our case, success is measured in a different way. I think it's based on relationships, and we're building those relationships. We're engaged into a process of transformation. So there's, I mean, this is, it's gonna keep going, and we're gonna keep pushing, and after the microgrids, it's gonna be something else. So so I'm happy we're moving and building this reference. I'm happy that Dori and the Hono Foundation is part of the history of Adjuntas and Casa Pueblo and Puerto Rico in this energy transformation issue, which is not a simple task. It's a very complicated and a very significant act of what is happening in the island right now. But before I go, and forget about success, success will be if you can support the Hono Foundation, or if you're watching and you can support Casa Pueblo, and we're not asking for money. So in our case, if you go to our website, casapueblo.org, we have been economically self-sufficient by selling Café Madre Isla. And after the pandemic, we have been selling coffee, the best coffee in town in Puerto Rico. You can get it online. So if you want to support Casa Pueblo, go there and order your coffee so you can enjoy it at Juntas, at South Bend, or wherever you're watching this video right now.
It's delicious. I can vouch for that. Café Madre Isla.
Yeah.
It's
Café Madre Isla. Yes. Sorry about that. I have to do it.
Oh, good. It's Puerto Rican coffee is the best there is. So if you haven't tasted Puerto Rican coffee, you have to. Believe me, talking from experience. But perfect. So now we'll be moving to the Q&A part. Ginger, I see some hands in the chat. Do you want me to call them, or you want to?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So Melanie, you're more than free to unmute and make your question if you want to.
Hi, I'm Melanie. I'm actually from Carolina, Puerto Rico. I had a question because my dad, he never went to college, and he actually started going to college this year, and he got very educated about renewable energy and everything. He was very motivated about everything that's been related to renewable energy. And he even reached out to a corporation back home, trying to see if he can get a signature, or trying to get like an estimate of how much you would have to pay to turn completely solar. And it was almost the price of getting a house twice the price of where we live. So he got very discouraged. And I feel like there's a lot of negative connotations when thinking about going into solar. And I think that's very prominent in a lot of the metro area, where people just think, oh, it's going to be too much of an investment that we can't take right now, especially since we're not really prepared for even hurricanes. So what would you suggest would be the course of action, and like what to tell other people that have the same mindset about solar energy, and how much of an investment it is, when in reality it's just corporate greed trying to feed off of what people really want to do to improve their energy sources?
I have to say that the prices for solar systems in Puerto Rico have dropped significantly. What we have been installing in different homes in the mountains is half of the price of a normal vehicle. So it's not that high. But I do recognize that the high levels of poverty and necessities and other needs in Puerto Rico makes the initial investment very difficult. So that's why we're setting this microgrid, exactly because of that reason. We need to drive resources from within to help the transformation and help support people, low-income families, reach energy security as well. So we need to invest. The government should be investing. I think what we're doing is social investment to help people reach energy security. And I think we need to push stronger to help more people. And yes, the initial investment in a deprived economy like the one in Puerto Rico is the greatest obstacle for people to invest in solar systems. But can be done. I think can be done. And we need to support initiatives like the one that the Hono Foundation is pushing. I mean, Accessa will be, those people will get the benefit from solar systems, but the money will be used for low-income families. I think PREPA, the Power Authority, who should change their mission. Their mission was to take energy from one point and take it to your house. I think their mission should be to help people produce their own energy. That's the vision they don't have, but I think that's the mission they should get. They should be helping people. The government and the Power Authority should be helping people reach energy security. That should be their mission. But now they want to keep people as a market, and they don't want to help you produce your own energy. And that's a huge contradiction to our geographical reality and social needs.
Well, and I think just adding on to what you were saying, Arturo, to your point about what the government should be doing, I think it's important to remember that no matter where you are at the state level in the United States, like state level policy has a huge impact on how affordable and how realistic it is to get solar on your home. There's this great organization called Vote Solar who do some incredible policy advocacy work around that. And they also just know a lot about it. If you want to learn more about what it might look like to get solar if you live in the States. But I think too, it's an issue that you can have an impact on as a voter and as someone who's invested in sort of local politics. One of the things, I mean, like the project in Puerto Rico, some of the other projects that the Hono Foundation works on, we deliberately fund projects in places that are not super hospitable to solar as a way to help push the needle a little bit, to show people what's possible, to increase visibility. Putting our founder next to a nonprofit that is doing really cool solar work in a place like Michigan, which is not super hospitable to solar, has the potential to have a really big impact. So, I mean, it's a good question. And I think that in a lot of places, it is true that solar requires a big upfront investment. There are like different organizations that help with financing. It's still real money. And I think that, you know, setting aside the acute problem and thinking about the chronic one, addressing policy at the state and federal level has the potential to have a big impact on that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Arturo, you have something to say?
No, we have to stop any taxation to the sun. I guess we have to deal with the importation taxes. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done to reduce the cost, the upfront cost of many of these components. But there's a lot of solidarity happening in Puerto Rico. Today, we just got 250 solar panels that will be handled to people, at least providing the solar producing component and see if we can help more people to promote their investment for their homes and wealth being. So, I mean, there's other, we have to think about alternative of going around this economical part. There's a lot of, if you think about the health profile of Puerto Rico, there's a lot of sick people for different conditions. So energy is not the cost of energy of your house. It's translated to you losing your food, you losing your equipment that you need for therapy. I mean, there's a lot in stake right now. And we have to figure something out because PREPA and the centralized system has failed Puerto Rico and is still failing and it's going to fail again. So we need to help people.
Now, Nick Kronkovich, you could unmute and make a question.
Yeah, hi, my name's Nick. First, I just wanted to say, Dory, at one point you mentioned like how it's not going to be fast, easy, it's really challenging and no one's done it before. And having watched Free Solo, that seems like really on par for Alex and the organization. So that just seemed perfect. But my question is, so you talked a lot about how you're kind of building like a new social transformation in this grid. But can you give some specifics on how like the cost structure is set up, like who's paying? And you mentioned like paying for the poorest to obtain energy security? So are you using like kind of a pay as much as you can system, or like how is that being funded, and like what's the actual structure there?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a big question, right? It's like, how do we structure a payment system that makes sense? And the honest answer is we're still figuring it out. But the basic concept is that we look at prepa's rates, we cut a discount off the top, but the actual cost of running the microgrid is not really that high. I mean, it's basically free because we've provided all the startup funding to get the grid in place. So the majority of the money that the business owners will be collecting is going to be, some of it will be set aside for maintenance and repair, because while the Holland Foundation is always available as a resource, our fundamental goal is that Accessa be independent. But the majority of those funds are going to be available to support social good projects in the community. And that's really a place where Casa Pueblo is sort of the key contact. Like we aren't the ones who are going to decide that, but Arturo and the rest of the Casa Pueblo leadership will be the folks who help Accessa figure out the right way to distribute those funds. Because there's not like an obvious answer, right? When you have just like a pot of money sitting around. And so that's why Casa Pueblo will be so important in that process. Arturo, do you want to add anything to that?
I think what we're building is a sustainable mini Hono Foundation in Adjuntas, because they're going to be generating resources from within that will be like they're doing, not giving grants, but it's sort of the same thing. It's going to be used to help those, low income families. The prices is being discussed, and there's a lot of details that I should not be talking about because they're over the table, and we're actually discussing how to do this. We know we're gonna do it, but there's a lot of details that have not been well defined yet. It's happening right now, which is the cool part.
Yeah, like
and
literally.
We'll be able. Yeah, wait for next year for the ND Energy Week, and we'll tell you the answer.
Yeah, but it is
we'll
literally
share the
like,
answer.
the paperwork is being drawn up like currently, so that's why we're both a little bit vague about the details.
No, that's good. So perfect. And now, Cynthia, is Cynthia alone? You could unmute yourself and make your question.
Hey there, hi Turan, hi Dory. Just want to say, actually funny enough, I'm a student from Columbia doing a Master's in Sustainability Management, and last semester I did a project specifically on adjuntas and the face of natural disasters and how and we looked at Casa Pueblo, and we're really impressed by how it really So I'm also in the process of designing a solar charging station specifically for disaster relief purposes. This is awesome to hear. I'm curious with these projects too. It's you said it was 2 years in the making. It's a pilot project that kind of can be really an example to scale beyond Puerto Rico. What was the biggest challenge with this over the past years, and how was it overcome? And do we need another Casa Pueblo in another region or another country to make this work, or how do we make this scale?
Yeah, I get that question all the time, and I don't know the answer. It will be up to people to get organized, and because we don't have a recipe, we can share what we are doing here in Puerto Rico. I just want to let you know that we're not a disaster relief organization. This is just something that happened after Hurricane Maria. We just turned 40 years old. We're 40 years old organization, and we were initially about defending the land from open street mining. We have been promoting alternative. We are managing and protecting natural resources, new forest, and we have a radio station and a butterfly garden, and we built a school inside a forest, and we have a school for kids to learn how to play the instruments, and we built a solar cinema, and we're providing educational and different services to the community. That's what we do on a daily basis. On the side, we're doing the microgrid with the Holland Foundation and all of these solar projects, which is adding another layer of responsibilities, but very complementary to what we do. So that's why we're so different from the government and FEMA, because they come to repair things. We're about to see what is happening at the community level and change that for good. So it's a different approach, and I think I don't know how to scale that up. Hopefully by motivating other people and showing that it can be done. Can be done. The transformation can be pushed from the bottom up, from the side. As you're working and doing good things, you're gonna get good people around you, and people are gonna help. And we have seen that for 40 years, and it works. And because you're working and doing something for the community, it never ends, and it never ends your happiness for reaching all of these, things that happens at the community. So we're very privileged people for working for the community.
You can also tell from Arturo's list of the different things that Casa Pueblo does that he has tons of free time, and it's not busy even peripherally. Yeah, I don't know. I agree, Arturo. Like, I don't know how you. In some ways, I feel like Casa Pueblo's model can't be replicated for the same reason that it works, which is that it is so focused on the community and the community specific needs. And I think that's a commonality with, a lot of the organizations that the Hanna Foundation supports have that like hyper local quality. One of our criteria when we find new partners is, does the leadership come from the community that this organization serves? Because we fundamentally believe that if the leadership doesn't come from the community that the organization serves, they're not going to know what they need. And so I think, on an organizational level, I think supporting groups like Casa Pueblo, because there are other groups that have the same value set that are striving for similar goals, helping to enable them to reach those goals without showing up and being really didactic about what, like me as an outsider, thinks should be happening in their community, I think could be a really powerful way to advance their work. In terms of the microgrid specifically though, and this is like much more technical and much less visionary, but I think it's sort of relevant. It's just that we think this can be replicated. That's the whole point. And the first one, it's like, this is the first pancake. It's like, it's going to be delicious, but it's like kind of wonky to go through the process of like building it out. But it's our goal as an organization to figure out how to repeat this for other places. And so as we've been going through this process, working really closely with everyone in Juntas, with Arturo, with Accessa, with our project manager, Cynthia, we're taking really detailed notes. And what we're hoping we're going to end up with is sort of a rough roadmap of what it looks like to build a community microgrid like this. There are two tracks, right? There's the technical track. There's like, this is how all these things connect. This is what you're going to need to do with your local power authority. Some of that's going to change from place to place. And then there's the organizational development track, which is like, this is what you need to have a nonprofit that will manage this grid. These are the skills they need. These are the decision-making structures they need. And you got to have both. And so as we kind of finish out this project over the course of the next untold amount of time, we're really looking to track that and come up with, I wouldn't call it a recipe, but I think roadmap is the best way of framing it, so that as we find more organizations who are interested in similar things, HF can show up, provide them with that support, and help them realize that vision, with Casa Pueblo, providing that vision and that advisory support from afar.
Nice. So we basically reached our time. I would like to ask one more thing for Arturo and Dory. If you could say one quick pitch on how we students can help. I know Arturo mentioned already some things, but how can we help you guys in your project, and what as students here in Notre Dame we can do? Really quick, yeah.
Okay, I can go. HanaFoundation.org. If you want to make a gift, you can. I know that not all students have a lot of cash to work with, especially now, but my honest pitch is like, I think it's really important to support the causes that you care about financially. If you don't care about the Hanna Foundation's work, give money to something else. But I think even a small gift like $1 or $5 a month, especially recurring donations, can be super transformative for nonprofits. The Hanna Foundation is donor powered. We don't have an endowment like a lot of foundations where we're just like skimming a couple % off the top. So every dollar counts. Alex Honnold pays all of our admin overhead. So if you give money to the Hanum Foundation, it's directly supporting people like Casa Pueblo. And follow us on Instagram, sign up for our newsletter. We do really cool storytelling. Every Tuesday, Alex does a live conversation with a different climate leader or energy expert. He did one with Arturo a while ago. We should bring you back, Arturo. It's been a minute. And so those are really fun to tune into. You can follow us at Hanum Foundation.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, if you buy coffee in Starbucks, now you have an option to buy coffee that will help a community reach energy independence and community to protect their land. So you have to make conscious decisions of, and if you want to support Casa Pueblo, the Hanum Foundation, there's different ways to do it. But I'm a faculty member at the University of Puerto Rico, so I'm not going to tell you the answer. I mean, your students, you have to find out the answer of how you can do, how can you get organized or do something to help communities confront inequalities. And the social responsibility is not with yourself or your community or your own people, is with the whole planet. And we need to work on those ethical values. And hopefully from here, you will get some sense to think about an answer for yourself, how to support Casa Pueblo and Hanum or other environmental groups and social groups who are doing great work, and they are in great need of support as well.
Perfect.
I had just a real quick question. Is there any way we could share the links to some of these locations?
Like, can you share casapueblo.org?
Yep. Yeah, we'll type it into the chat.
Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect. So
I want to say hi to Maricel Moreno, Professor Moreno, if she's somewhere from Puerto Rico. My regards.
Arturo. So great to see you.
Bueno verte. Me alegro saludarte.
Igual.
yeah, Maricel, she's the moderator. She helps us with the Puerto Rican club here. She's the leader of the club, so she's a big help for us. But yeah, so perfect. Thank you everybody for being here. The formal event has ended, but if I'm not wrong, we have breakout sessions. Arturo and Dori have been kind enough to dedicate more time to us, and we're gonna have some breakout sessions. If I'm not wrong, those that you had to fill out a form, subscribe to the meeting. So those that did, I think Ginger will move you to a breakout room. Ginger, if you could give a
Yep.
Yeah.
So like Alvaro said, the formal event is over, and we will dismiss the masses, and we'll go to the breakout sessions. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it a lot for coming here.
I am very disappointed. No